Hello and welcome to episode 5. Keep track to keep progressing. This is the third episode in a series on taking the right kind of action. If we want a healthier, more balanced life, whatever that means to each of us individually, then I believe there are 3 steps to take to make this easier to do. Step 1, take the right kind of action. Step 2, check your thoughts. Step 3, get the right kind of accountability and support. I'm doing a whole series of episodes on each of those 3 steps. A whole series of episodes on taking the right kind of action, a whole series of episodes on checking your thoughts, and this is a game changer, and a whole series of episodes on getting the right kind of accountability and support, also a game changer. Right now, we are right in the middle of the series on taking the right kind of action. Taking the right kind of action that leads to habits is what I teach my clients to do in my programs. And there are 7 steps to taking the right kind of action that you might remember from a previous episode. But let's list them again. Step 1, set specific instructions. Step 2, start small and break down your goals. Step 3, keep track. Step 4, make your goals work for you. Make them pleasurable. Step 5, set up accountability to others and then to yourself. Step 6, forgive yourself. And step 7, celebrate your wins. We're doing an episode on each one of these steps. In episode 4, I talked about starting small. And in episode 3, we covered setting specific instructions. If you're new to the show, go back and start from the beginning. Today, we're talking about step 3, keep track. We're talking about keeping track of the actions that we are taking. Now, this is something that may seem obvious or that you may want to skip over, but don't. Keep listening and get curious about your own life and the actions that you want to take or are currently taking. Are you keeping track of how often you are doing them? Our brain wants to repeat what is pleasurable, and our brain doesn't want to have to spend a lot of energy trying to remember to do things or trying to remember if we actually did our new things or if we did them in the way or the amount of times that we said we would. Habits, those things we do without needing to consciously plan or think about, brushing our teeth, putting on our seatbelt, scrolling on our phones, plopping on the couch to watch TV, these things are more easily formed around pleasure. So we want to tie pleasure back to every single thing we're doing. Think about your actions that are habits and that are automatic. Some of them are neutral, some of them are pleasurable, and some may not give you much pleasure at all. It's harder to do the things that are not pleasurable, right? More on this in a future episode. Now, when it comes to keeping track of our actions or keeping track of our goals, when we acknowledge and can actually see that we have done what we said we would do, when we can see that we've planned the meal, that we did the Pilates video, that we went for the walk, that we stopped to meditate and breathe for 2 minutes a couple times that day, that we drank our 20 ounces of water for the day, whatever our action or goal was, when we can actually see that we did it or check it off or acknowledge it, this gives us a little spark and it feeds the positive side of our brain. It feeds in to the pleasure. And remember, we want our actions to be pleasurable, then we will be more drawn to want to repeat them. So when we see that we've actually done it, we get that spark, right? Oh, I did it. That helps us repeat it again. The other important thing about keeping track is that our brain also needs some things on autopilot. It takes energy to remember if we actually did these new things that we said we would do. It takes energy to try to remember those things that aren't habits. These actions are not habits yet, and we have to set specific instructions, like we talked about before, on how often we'll do the action. So go back and listen to episode 3. And we need to be aware then if we have actually done it or not. If we're not keeping track, we might just simply forget. So let's remind ourselves to do the action, but then take notice and mark off that we did it. Doing this acknowledgement can give us that good feeling, that pleasure that will help propel us to do it again the next day or the next week. So maybe we committed to doing an action 2 times that week, and we can actually see and acknowledge that we have done it twice already, and we're only midway through the week. Then we might be likely to do it an extra time. Or we see that we only have 2 days left of this week, and we said we were going to do our thing 2 times, and we haven't done it at all because we're keeping track and paying attention to that. So we jump in and complete it to get it in for that week and record it so we can get that pleasure. So keeping track can look like marking it off of a to-do list or keeping track on our phone or digitally somehow. Something that you're going to see and not have to work hard to search for, right? Our brain doesn't want to have to try to use more energy to figure out if we've done our thing or not. So this keeping track might be as simple as getting a piece of paper and writing the days of the week across the top. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And then putting an X or a check mark under the day that you have done the thing you said you would do. Now you use this piece of paper, this something new, this daily routine interrupter, you use it and you watch it and use it to help you keep track of how many times you did something or if you did it at all. Now, when you put that X under Tuesday because you worked out that day, or if you put a check mark under Wednesday because you planned a meal that day, or you put an X under Friday because you called a friend to get together to make that connection you said you wanted to do, when you see that you're doing these things and acknowledging it, you get that spark and it helps you stay on track. Instead of realizing, oh, shoot, this past week I was going to do blank twice, and I think I only did it once, or I forgot to do it again. I didn't keep track of whether or not I was actually doing it, right? Then our old behavior or our routine just takes over. Now, I know you might be thinking, okay, Kathy, if I say I'm going to walk 2 times in the next 7 days, and remember from previous episodes, we break this down into what am I going to do in the next 7 days. So if I say I'm going to walk 2 times in the next 7 days and it's Sunday, yes, I realize that you're going to be able to remember that you walked 2 times. But I want you to actually acknowledge it, check it off a list, write it down. These are the things that give us that spark. These are the things that lead to those pleasure loops, those habit loops forming in our brain. Keep track. Now, how you keep track is up to you, and it needs to be up to you. It needs to be individualized. So maybe your coworker uses their phone to keep track or has some fancy apps or a watch that keeps track, and this is useful because they check it. Personally, I have all the technology, the Apple Watch, the apps, the reminders, I can open up my watch and see if my rings are closed or, if I've done something. But honestly, over time, I've learned to just ignore all of that half the time, or I don't actually open up the app and check it. So for me, when I'm starting something new, because maybe the newness of that app on my watch has worn off and I just ignore it or I don't go in and check. Sometimes I need to go back to basics, right? And leave a big sheet of paper on my kitchen counter with my action and my days of the week and my X. So I can have my technology remind me to do it, but I don't always go into my technology and check it off or pay attention. And it's really important that we're acknowledging and keeping track. Now, once this action, this new thing that you are taking becomes more automatic or habitual, then obviously you don't need to be as intentional about keeping track. You don't need to keep track of how many times you brushed your teeth this week or how many times you put on your seatbelt. But when we're trying something new or when we're wanting to form the habit around something new, acknowledging, checking it off, seeing that we've done it, helps our brain move forward with wanting to repeat that action. Again, how you keep track is up to you. I coach women of all ages, and some of them use paper or a note card or a journal or an app on their phone or their watch, whatever works for them. Over time, we figure out what works for them, because during our weekly coaching call or during when they're listening to the modules I send them or when they're in our group me, they can see if their way of keeping track is working for them or not. If it's not, we don't judge. We get curious and find another way. And sometimes my clients will learn from each other on the call or learn from seeing what other people are posting about, and they can try another method that another person is using. So it's a great way to share ideas in a non-judgmental zone over time. Or if you're seeing people report, oh, did my Pilates video again, or, ate my energy-giving food again, and you're like, oh, look, they're doing their thing. And then you're like, wait, what's that thing I'm supposed to be doing? Have I done it? Oh, yeah, I did drink my water 3 days last week. So I see that here on my sheet. I'm going to report that. I'm going to keep track. Now, we're talking about keeping track of what we have done, the number of times we did our action, not on the times or days that we did not do the action. More on this in future episodes. So if I have my 7 days of the week written out, my Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and I said I was going to walk 2 times that week or meditate 3 times that week or meal plan 2 times that week or call a friend to get together 1 time or, whatever it might be. And I did that. I see my 2 check marks. I said I was going to do it twice. That's what I focus on. I don't focus on the 5 days that I don't have a check because what we give our attention to will increase. Let me say that again. What we give our attention to will increase. That's why we want to focus our attention on keeping track of the times we did go to the gym, the times we did plan our meal. We're not looking at the days that we didn't. We are acknowledging the number of times that we did it. So when I see that I did that thing I said I would do, I feel good about it. Every tiny step. So again, if you say you're going to walk 2 times in the week and you see your note or you've crossed it off, it brings you pleasure and helps you want to repeat it. Now, right now we're just talking about, did I do my action? I'm keeping track. Did I walk 2 times or not? Yes, I see I walked 2 times. I'm not going to get caught up in all the other information about the step right now, right? Like, oh, I walked, but how many miles did I walk? How many calories did I burn? How fast did I go? Yes, it's very cool and can be rewarding to keep track of all of this too on our fancy devices. But if we're trying to just become consistent in doing this walking or whatever this action is, then we need to keep it simple and just focus on completing it. Then we can layer in, oh, now let's see how fast I went, or, keep track of how many steps I had. Once this is a regular habit for you. I hope that makes sense because it's very important to take these steps and to take these tiny steps. So just focus on completing it. So it's easy for me also, right, to get overwhelmed with all the stats when I start something new, right? Like, I just started this new workout, which I did. I'm starting to do this YouTube video that I like of this HIIT workout for women over 50, and I am self-coaching myself. Again, that's what I teach my clients to do as well, self-coach, and I'm going through all the steps. And until it becomes more of a habit that I'm going to get up and work my way up to this 3 or 4 times a week, I need to keep things simple. And I noticed that I've started like, this was my heart rate, 2 days ago, that I started getting into all the statistics about it and comparing it to the last time, etc. And it started to seem a little complicated. When my brain starts to associate this new activity or action I'm doing with being too complicated or taking too much brain power, then it's going to cause me to want to sabotage and not take the action. So more on that in future episodes, but just keep track if you did it or not. So one of the first questions that I ask my clients when we're on a coaching call, or if I'm posting in an accountability group, or if they're doing a self-guided program and they're getting modules from me and they're listening, I'm asking them, how did you do with your action steps from last time? And, they may say, yes, I said I was going to blank 3 times. How did it go? I did it. They kept track. So they did it, and they can see they did it, and they can repeat it. And it doesn't take them off guard like, I did say I was going to do that 4 times. Let's see. Did I do it? I don't know. Or, oh my gosh, I think I only did it twice, and then the rest of the week got away from me. So we coach on learning how to keep track, and we don't judge if we forgot to keep track or the method we said we were going to use to keep track didn't work. We get curious on how we can set ourselves up for success the next time. So that is the episode on keeping track. When you can keep track and acknowledge that you did your step, or you see how you're moving through the week and you're like, I've already done this 2 times. I'm going to get an extra in, and that's fine too. You get that pleasure from seeing that you've accomplished it. That kind of takes that weight off, right? Like, wow, I did this. It was easy. I might throw in another time. Keep track to keep progressing. All right. If you're ready to keep progressing and to be one of my clients so that you can get help with all of these steps, then check out the links in the show notes and choose the option that works best for you. Until next time, keep it simple, keep it real.